a story of silence and obsession, lost in the mist. Some paintings impress us with grandeur, others overwhelm us with color or with scale. But a few rare works do something very different. They fall silent and ask us to do the same. Today, we are looking at one of the quietest masterpieces in the history of art. A painting made almost entirely of nothing, and yet a painting filled with grief, memory, and a lifetime of obsession. This is Hasegawa Tohaku's Pine Trees Shorinzu Byobu. For just 2 weeks each new year, an unusual tension fills a quiet room in the Tokyo National Museum. Visitors are not drawn there by many masterpieces, but by one. Among all Japanese paintings, one work stands apart as the museum's undisputed favorite, Hasegawa Tohaku's Shorinzu Byobu. 6 folding panels, ink on paper, a pine forest dissolving into deep mist, a distant snow-covered mountain barely visible beyond it. At first glance, the painting seems almost shockingly simple, yet the longer you stand before it, the more it changes. You begin to feel the cold, damp air. You imagine the sound of wind moving through pine needles. The silence grows heavy, almost physical. This is not merely a landscape. Hidden within this quiet scene is the life of a single painter shaped by ambition, rivalry, and devastating loss. It is a story born in the chaos of 16th century Japan during the age of civil war, a story of fierce obsession and of silence earned at a terrible cost. Today, we follow the path of a man who rose from obscurity to become the leading painter of the realm, Hasegawa Tohaku, and the mystery of the ultimate stillness he reached in Shorinzu Byobu. Chapter 1: The Detective Story of Nobuharu. But to understand this silence, we must begin far from Kyoto, in obscurity. Hasegawa Nobuharu, also known as Shinshun, was born in 1539 in Nanao, in Japan's northern Noto Peninsula. He was the son of a low-ranking samurai, and as a child was adopted into the Hasegawa family who ran a dyeing business. It was there that he first learned to paint. For many years, Tohaku's early life posed one of the great mysteries of Japanese art history. Before appearing in Kyoto in his mid-30s, his career seemed to vanish without a trace. In the mid-20th century, a scholar proposed a daring theory. What if the obscure Buddhist painter Shinshun, active in Noto, and the later master Tohaku were the same person? This art historical detective story was finally solved in 2009 when decisive evidence came to light. As a young man, Nobuharu was a devoted follower of the Nichiren Buddhist sect and painted religious images and portraits. At the time, Buddhist painters rarely signed their work. But Nobuharu was different. Astonishingly, he boldly inscribed his name and seal on his paintings, as if declaring his presence to the world. His early style could not be more different from Shorinzu Byobu. The brushwork is extremely fine. The compositions are dense, decorative, and vividly colored. Even then, Nobuharu showed an almost obsessive devotion to detail, a determination to infuse every inch of the surface with life. Yet success in a provincial town could not satisfy his ambition. At 33, having lost his adoptive parents, he gathered his wife and children and set out for Kyoto, the cultural heart of a nation at war. Chapter 2: Kyoto and the Unfair Wall. Kyoto was not a city of opportunity. It was a city of walls. When Tohaku arrived in Kyoto in 1571, the art world was already ruled by an absolute power, the Kano school. For generations, the Kano painters had served the shoguns. Now they stood at the center of political power itself. Leading them was a prodigy 4 years younger than Tohaku, Kano Eitoku. Eitoku enjoyed the full trust of Oda Nobunaga and Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the most powerful men in Japan. His monumental paintings, covered in gold leaf and filled with massive trees painted in bold strokes, became symbols of authority and dominance. For Tohaku, an outsider with no patron, Kyoto was a time of humiliation and endurance. He briefly studied under the Kano school, learning their techniques, but was ultimately pushed aside by the weight of tradition and privilege. Still, surrender was never an option. Instead, Tohaku devised a strategy. He turned to what the Kano painters largely ignored: ancient traditions and the ink painting of Chinese masters such as Moke, as well as Japan's great Zen painter Sesshu. He absorbed these influences completely until they became part of his own flesh and blood. Then, in a move both audacious and desperate, he claimed to be the legitimate fifth-generation successor of Sesshu himself, even fabricating a lineage to challenge the Kano monopoly. His passion eventually caught the attention of one man above all others, Sen no Rikyu, the great tea master. This encounter would quietly change everything. Through Rikyu and through deepening contact with Zen thought, Tohaku's art began to change. Ornament fell away. What remained was essence. At last, after years of struggle, Tohaku stood on the threshold of success. But behind this hard-won triumph, tragedy was already approaching. Chapter 3, A Golden Duel. Tohaku versus Eitoku. What followed was not just artistic rivalry, it was a struggle for legitimacy. Tohaku's career in Kyoto became a direct confrontation with Kano Eitoku, the embodiment of the artistic establishment. Eitoku's gold leaf screens projected power and certainty, perfectly suited to the ambitions of warlords. Tohaku, by contrast, was a lone wolf. He built his position not through power, but through alliances with cultural leaders, Zen monks, tea masters, and intellectuals, quietly undermining the Kano dominance. Eitoku viewed the rise of the Hasegawa school with alarm. Historical records even suggest that he intervened to block Tohaku from receiving commissions at the imperial court. Then, suddenly, fate intervened. In 1590, Kano Eitoku died unexpectedly at the age of 47, exhausted by overwork. And with that, the balance of power collapsed. The following year, Tohaku was given the opportunity of a lifetime, a vast, state-sponsored commission to decorate Shonji Temple, built by Toyotomi Hideyoshi in memory of his young son. Here, Tohaku answered Eitoku on his own terms, with gold. The result was the magnificent maple trees, a national treasure. While adopting the grandeur of Kano composition, Tohaku infused it with greater subtlety and a deeper sense of nature's rhythm. At last, he secured his title, the leading painter of the realm. After decades of struggle, Tohaku had finally won, or so it seemed. But just as he reached the summit, the ground beneath him gave way. Chapter 4, The Fall from the Summit, the Death of Kyuzo. Then came the loss that no victory could survive. During the monumental project at Shonji, Tohaku was not alone. At his side stood his eldest son, Kyuzo, a painter of extraordinary promise. Kyuzo's talent rivaled his father's. His screen painting Cherry Blossoms revealed a sensitivity and refinement that suggested the future of the Hasegawa school was secure. Father and son worked together as equals. They shared not only technique, but vision. Kyuzo was more than an heir. He was Tohaku's closest companion, the one person who truly understood his struggle. Then, in 1593, disaster struck. Kyuzo died suddenly at the age of 26. Some grief does not fade. It only becomes quieter. For Tohaku, this was not simply the loss of a successor. It was the loss of a partner, a confidant, a future imagined together. Some grief does not fade, it only becomes quieter. After years of fierce rivalry, after defeating the Kano school and claiming the highest rank an artist could achieve, Tohaku found himself alone. The summit he had fought so hard to reach was silent. He was in his mid-50s. And in the face of this unbearable grief, Tohaku did not turn to gold leaf nor to grand commissions. Instead, he turned inward. Chapter 5, The Birth of Silence, the Mystery of Shorinzu Byobu. Out of that silence, one painting emerged. It is widely believed that Shorinzu Byobu was painted shortly after Kyuzo's death. Compared to the radiant splendor of maple trees, this work is its complete opposite. No gold, no ornament, no assertion of power, only ink. The screen itself is filled with mysteries. Scholars have long noted details that seem strangely incomplete. The seams of the paper do not align perfectly. Certain areas appear unfinished, as if parts of the image are missing altogether. The paper is unusually thin, material more often used for preparatory sketches than for final works. Because of this, some have argued that Shorinzu Byobu was never meant to be completed at all. Yet even if it began as a draft, one question remains. Why does this painting possess such overwhelming presence? According to some accounts, Tohaku used crude tools, bundles of straw or split bamboo instead of refined brushes. The strokes are fast, rough, and deeply physical, as if he were striking the surface with his own grief. What we see is a pine forest dissolving into morning mist. Some viewers recognize the landscape of Tohaku's birthplace in Noto, the cold sea wind, the heavy moisture of northern winters. Others see something more metaphysical. The Shorinzu Byobu, fading into fog, seemed to hover between existence and disappearance, like a boundary between this world and the next. In these vanishing forms, one can almost glimpse the presence of Kyuzo himself. Drawing on techniques learned from the Chinese monk painter Muqi, Tohaku paints not objects, but space. The true subject of this work is the emptiness, the ma, between things. That emptiness becomes a mirror. Within it, viewers project their own solitude, their own memories of those they have lost. Perhaps Shorinzu Byobu was never meant for an audience at all. Perhaps it was not a work of art in the usual sense. It may have been something far more intimate, a private confession, painted by a father confronting irreparable loss, an attempt to quiet a restless soul through ink and silence. And it is here, in this mist-filled forest, that Hasegawa Tohaku finally reaches the stillness he had been seeking all his life. Shorinzu Byobu does not explain itself. It does not demand attention. It waits. In its mist, forms dissolve. Certainty disappears. And what remains is not nature alone, but the trace of a human life. A father, a painter, a man who lost what mattered most. In the end, Hasegawa Tohaku did not leave us a monument to power or to success. He left us a moment of stillness, and sometimes that is the most enduring legacy of all.